So one of the first major questions I always get asked on this channel is art school worth it? That is probably the most frequently asked question I get, no matter how many times I've actually answered it in multiple videos, but you know what? Why not add to that list of videos today? In addition to that, I might as well try out one potential example of an online art course platform to see if maybe this could be a good alternative option if going to art school might not be for you. Anyway, thank you to Colosso for sponsoring today's video and allowing me to try out some of their classes so that I can help you make more informed decisions about educational options out there for you in your respective art skill or career. I've heard a lot of people express curiosity towards Colosso as a potential option for art education and online courses for art skills, so hopefully my review can help you decide if Colosso is a potential good learning option for you. So Colosso is a creative online class platform that offers courses from professionals in a multitude of industries such as animation, illustration, gaming, and much more, featuring teachers from around the world, which I find super helpful, especially for my audience, because I know that some of you are not necessarily based in the US, so that you can see what potential art careers might be out there for you in other countries that might be within your own or even nearby. And another thing about Colosso that I find helpful about their roster of teachers is that you can see each teacher's work experience, projects that they've worked on, and any notable awards that they've been nominated or won. This can help inform you of your teacher's credibility, unlike other platforms where there's this random person who you're unsure about their work history. You can get an in-depth overview of what each curriculum entails and the teacher's answers to thoughts on the state of their respective industries and any specific takeaways you may gain from their class. And of course, if a class did not meet your expectations, you can learn more about the refund policy, which is under each course's profile. In general, I find Colosso to be more of a creative self-learning teaching platform where you can get access to all of the teachers' video courses broken down into chapters, and you will also be able to download any materials to follow along with their tutorials or lessons. However, you will not be receiving any feedback or direct critiques from the teachers themselves, as you are mostly just paying to get access to their courses online. But yeah, the only thing I will say again is that I find critique and feedback to be a very valuable part of learning, so that is something you might have to hold yourself accountable for, and you might have to go search out for a group somewhere else to get feedbacks and critiques from peers or teachers that you are already connected to. So as a person primarily working in the animation industry, I'm gonna briefly review two classes. One is 2D frame-by-frame animation by Soto O and fairy tale style character design by Mia Cat. And I'll say that these classes are pretty much good for anybody who is in the animation illustration world that might be interested in creating their own independent or student film, 2D animations, character design, illustration, and maybe even some storyboarding. So in the 2D animation class by Soto O, he is an independent film director who has been nominated and won a good number of awards, freelanced and did work for Tonko House, Procreate, and Kakao Animation. And in his class, he teaches a lot about the foundations of animation. So this is going to be really great for beginners who have no idea where to start when it comes to beginning animation. His lessons, I find, go into more specific examples, like you study animals and the way that they move on a very broad general basis, and just kind of understanding the essence and feeling of the motion of different things, more so than just following a standard method that was established by North American animators. So after that, you will also analyze the physics of different elements, characters, and feelings. And this is the thing that I enjoy, again, where you're not stuck in this beginner phase for so long that you're just doing ball bounces for an eternity eternity, at least you will actually start to practice doing very basic animation that is still catered towards beginners, but you get to practice with drawing things that are a little bit more applicable to actual projects you might be doing in your own time. So you will also get a morphing and experimental abstract animation chapter, which I find super unique because if any of you know my work, I personally also enjoy a good experimental 2D animation moment, and I feel like a lot of 2D animation is leaning towards this as well. And in the end, you also get a practical lesson where you see everything come together. Soto will show good examples of showing storyboarding before animation to plan out your shots, which is obviously a thing that I highly encourage anyone who's doing a student film or short film to try out to do. And it is also nice that there is an edited version of the lesson where you kind of see him explain things, but it's a shorter format. But there's also a super long, raw, unedited version to see the actual process, so you can watch in real time how he animates his stuff with no cuts, no edits. Of course, it's probably going to take hours, but at least if there is a part of the process that you were curious about, you can kind of click around and get more specification on a certain area of his process. I would say this is good for anyone who is interested in 2D animation, developing or creating their own short film, student film, independent film, and I would say even some storyboarding, because while this class is primarily a 2D animation class, towards the end in the practical lessons section, there's actually a lot of moments where he explains how he approaches storyboarding so that when it is translated to animation, everything is communicated clearly. And I feel like that is an aspect that is going to be very important for anyone who is going to be entering the animation industry and wants to know how that pipeline between animators and storyboarders are going to work. So next we're going to move on to the character design class by Meerkat, who has done work for Riot Korea, DreamWorks, and Mattel. So in Meerkat's course, you're going to learn about the fundamentals, anatomy, and proportions of humans, characters that you're going to eventually be developing, but you're going to learn about more of the realistic anatomical proportions of humans, which is another question I frequently receive is, how do you do anatomy? How do you do proportions? It's such a vague question that I myself can't answer, but maybe Meerkat can for you. So in addition to that, you will also learn about how to stylize and further characterize characters so that you're not just drawing things from an observational level, but you can make stylistic choices to make your characters more appealing for certain projects that you might be potentially working on, or even just for the sake of developing your own art style. And this is something that I will find super beneficial for anyone who is interested in getting a job or animation character design job, specifically within the United States of America, because the style that is mostly focused in the US is the Western, somewhat Disney style, and I feel like anime influence is starting to become a thing, but I don't know. I think in general, the whole Western slash anime look combined together is going to be more of a thing, which is why I think Meerkat's class would be beneficial for anyone who is seeking to try to learn to draw in this style, because I think this style would probably be considered the safest option for anyone who wants to just get a foot into the character designing world. And eventually you can create your own characters where after moving on from the face and head, you can further focus on the body, silhouette, and poses. Then afterwards, there's actually a nice bonus chapter where Meerkat also talks about backgrounds, which honestly, I wouldn't have expected that in a character design class, because sure, backgrounds can be a part of a character, I guess, but also at the same time, backgrounds in the pipeline of animation is considered kind of a different, its own sector. So I feel like, it's a nice bonus point that you can have backgrounds, which also falls into my tip from my art tips video, is that if you're going to be drawing characters, make sure to always include a background. And it seems as though that advice is also followed by other artists out there. So after that, you guys will also be learning how to make your own character sheets, full bodies, and expressions, which is going to be pretty crucial for when you are building a character design portfolio. So if you were not able to get access about how to learn how to make a character design portfolio to submit to jobs in animation industries or art industries out there, I think that Meerkat's lesson can at least give you a good start on that. So overall, I will say that Mia Cat's class is good for character design portfolios and anyone who is interested in learning to draw in the style that is more appealing to American animation industries. So just note that these classes are also in Korean and there are going to be English subtitles, but just so you know, these are classes that if you do not speak or understand Korean, you will probably have to pay attention and read the captions while you are following along, which honestly I think will force you to focus more, but just also know that these classes are really long. So in a way, it's a good bang for your buck, but also just know that I don't suggest watching them all in one sitting. So because this is kind of more of a self-learning platform, you kind of have to choose how to pace your learning out. But my suggestion for a way to properly pace out these courses would be to not take more than 3 hours of learning at a time. So for me, my classes during my time in art school were normally all around 3 hours long. That was the standard class time, but of course you're not obligated to follow it. It's just a suggestion. So if you are someone who has to learn on your own, I would suggest learning 3 hours at a time maximum, because while it is very exciting to gain this knowledge and access to all of these materials from these classes, I will say that the best way for you to healthily absorb and maintain the stuff that you learn is to just learn what you can for 3 hours and practice for either the rest of the day, upcoming few days, or week. I would limit myself to only referring back to those 3 hours of course material that I allotted to myself for that 1 week and spend the rest of the week doing the practice itself and only going back to those 3 hours that you learned from, so that you can constantly be filling yourself and maximizing the knowledge that you have gained from that section, instead of just busting through the whole course and only retaining like bits and pieces scattered here and there. So if I were to put out somewhat of a calendar or a schedule to learn from these courses from, here's what something like that would look like, where once again, every week I would just take 3 hours of something that I'm learning from the class, spend the rest of the week practicing, following the course material, doing my own exercise, and afterwards I would then go on to the next one where I would repeat the process, but really spend that 1 week focusing on that 3 hours of material that you learned from. So like I said earlier, I do find Colosso to be a very beneficial learning platform for people who are self-motivated, want to teach themselves, but just remember that the critique and feedback aspect is not going to be a part of the platform for the time being. However, I will say that you can still gain access to feedback from other people within your art communities that you can find on Reddit, Discord, or even any of your classmates, peers, or teachers that you've already had connections with. But other ways I would personally take these classes beyond just the courses, because again, you want to gain experience and have this actually help you improve your art. These are things I would do. One is I would make a short 60 to 90 second short film in less than 6 months if possible. You can only learn so much from the exercises that you got from the classes, so I think it would be better if you put your shared knowledge into an applicable experience, such as making a film. And the reason why I'm putting 6 months cap is because I feel like if you don't put a deadline to anything, you're probably not going to finish it. And it's also better to just see how much you can actually accomplish within this time span, so that you can get a gauge of your work pacing. Then afterwards, I would share it on YouTube, Vimeo, but also share it with animation or film groups that you can find either on Reddit or Discord or any other peers that you might know of to ask for feedback. And when you do post your work online, I think the key thing to get from people is to see if what you created was clear to them. This is the #1 rule you're going to be learning in animation or art at all, is before your art even gets good, you got to make sure it's clear. Do people even understand what you're watching? Do people even understand what they're looking at? Because if they don't understand what they're looking at and they're not clear about it, that's already like a foundational thing that you know you've got to work on, is creating more clarity in your work before you start worrying about how pretty or how complex to make it. Then the next suggestion, if you don't want to make a short film because maybe you're focused more on character design, illustration, things that don't require a moving element to them, is to make a portfolio in 3 to 6 months. This is a shorter time frame because the quicker you get feedback, the quicker you will grow and have less time waiting. So places you can get portfolio reviews are at art and animation conventions near you. Even under Mia Cat's experience listing, they were at Lightbox Expo. So if you ever want feedback from maybe Mia Cat, go to Lightbox Expo. And there are even artists online within the same field as you who may be offering portfolio reviews. But once again, if any of this is just too complicated or too much for you to do, again, the simplest way is to either reach out to online forums that are in the art animation communities and ask them for feedback, or ask any teachers or peers or connections that you might already know of. So overall, what do I think about Colosso? I feel like if you're somebody who is unsure about going to an art school, or you're not sure if you want to pursue art as a career, I think Colosso is a great in-between for you to start dipping your toes and taking lessons from actual professionals to see if either going to art school or to see if getting an art career would even be for you. So compared to actually attending an art school, the cost is immensely less. But I would say if you are someone who is an intermediate artist and you've already had lessons before, I think that Colosso would be a great option for if you specifically want to further your skills in a certain area and you want to hear from a specific teacher who maybe worked in a similar project or industry that you would be interested in the future. For example, there are a lot of 2D animation studios or Korean animation studios that you might have interest in, so teachers within Colosso might have more insight in that regard, and unique different approaches that you might not usually find in an American art school, because I do find that a lot of Colosso's styles lean more into the anime space, which, you know, if you do want to work on more anime driven projects in the future, I do think Colosso's style is more in line with that. But I will also say that I do think a lot of American projects and studios are starting to allow more influence from anime styles. And lastly, if you are a professional artist who has, you know, already gone through art school and you've already worked certain jobs in the industry, I think Colosso would be a great supplemental tool if you ever are interested in just learning more about a certain class, but you don't want the commitment of like a class where you actively have to attend and sit in hours of and give homework for. I think Colosso is a great option for just anybody who is interested in learning about a more specific field within animation, illustration, design, art. I personally feel like it's always great to resharpen your skills while gaining a new different perspective from different teachers instead of the ones that you've kind of always been listening to. So yeah, I hope this video helped some of you make a more better informed decision on if Colosso could be of interest to you. I definitely feel like things like their 2D animation class would have been so helpful for me as a young aspiring student. That's why I'm passing that knowledge on to you, because I'm sure some of you out there are interested in this stuff and are curious about it, and I'm letting you know that, hey, it's definitely worth a try. So thank you to Colosso for sponsoring today's video and allowing me to share some more options out there for anybody who wants more alternatives to art school or art classes. I hope that it helped. I hope that it informed you. And if you do take a class from Colosso, please share your experience down below. Anyway, thank you again for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.